Assalamu alaikum. The title of our lesson is Conservation of Mass. Before you start, I need you please to read and follow these instructions. At the end of this video, you will be able to infer that mass is conserved during a chemical reaction. What do you think will happen to the mass of an egg after we boil it? Would it become heavier, lighter, or have the same mass? Well, the mass of the egg will remain constant. The mass of an egg before boiling is equal to the mass of an egg after boiling. This is an important rule in chemistry, discovered by the chemist Antoine Lavoisier, who said that the total mass of the reactants or starting materials must be equal to the mass of the products produced during a chemical reaction. And this law is known as Lavoisier law. Let's prove this by an experiment. We will try to prove this law by the reaction between vinegar and chalk. And you can follow with me, book page 104. The materials needed in this experiment are balloon, powdered chalk, flask, vinegar, and balance. First, insert the chalk powder into the balloon, and then pour some vinegar into the flask. Fix the opening of the balloon to the mouth of the flask, without letting the powdered chalk in the balloon to enter the flask. Now, measure the mass of the setup using the balance. Remember, chalk is inside the balloon and vinegar is inside the flask. The mass before the reaction is 142 grams. Now, pour the chalk powder that is in the balloon into the flask. And I want you to observe what will happen to the balloon. Oops, as you can see, the balloon is inflating. What do you think this balloon contains? Well, it contains gas. Where does this gas come from? It comes from the chemical reaction between the chalk and the vinegar. Let's measure the mass of the setup at the end of the reaction. As you can see, by using the balance, the mass of the setup after the reaction is 142 grams. Well, what do you conclude? The mass of the setup before the reaction equal to the mass of the setup after the reaction. Then we can say that mass is conserved. So I observed use page 144. First question, was there a chemical reaction between the chalk and the vinegar? How did you know? Yes, there was a chemical reaction between the chalk and the vinegar. And we can know that because there was release of gas, which is a sign of a chemical reaction. Second question, did the measurement of mass change during the chemical reaction? How did you know? No, the measurement of mass didn't change because the mass of the setup before the reaction is equal to the mass of the setup after the reaction. Third question, what do you conclude? We conclude that mass is conserved during a chemical reaction. Let's solve this application together. Consider that a reaction between 100 grams of iron takes place with oxygen to produce 143 grams of rust. Calculate the mass of oxygen involved in this reaction. First, let's write the word equation of this reaction. Iron and oxygen are the reactants, and rust is the product. So the word equation would be iron plus oxygen arrow rust. We have 100 grams of iron and 143 grams of rust are produced. So what is the mass of oxygen? According to law of conservation of mass, the mass of the reactants equal to the mass of the products. So in this case, the mass of iron plus the mass of oxygen equal to the mass of rust. So 100 grams plus mass of oxygen equal to 143 grams. Then mass of oxygen would be 143 grams minus 100 grams equal 43 grams.